Story 1.
AITA for making my cousin's pregnant GF sleep on the couch over Thanksgiving? One year, my aunt, 60 years old, hosted Thanksgiving at her large house. She was very eager to have my mother's family join, including me and my sister, along with her husband and kids, because it had been a while since we all got together. She insisted that everyone should stay at her house to spend more time together. Before I agreed, I confirmed with her that I would have a bed in a room with a door that closes. I don't mind sharing a bed or a room, but I needed a real sleeping space. Being the only one among my siblings and cousins who was single and childless, I often ended up sleeping on the couch or floor during holidays. This was always uncomfortable, especially since I am overweight and usually wake up with back pain. I've experienced air mattresses deflating overnight and struggled to fall asleep until the younger family members finished hanging out at 1 a.m., only to be awakened at 6 a.m. by someone making coffee. I also had my luggage moved around. I would get only a few hours of poor sleep and wake up in pain. I promised myself that if I couldn't get a real bed in an actual room, I would book a hotel. When Thanksgiving week arrived, I was pleasantly surprised to be assigned a room and a queen bed for myself. All the adults had beds they shared with their partners. The first night was great, but the day before Thanksgiving, my cousin, 35M, arrived with his girlfriend, 28F, who is 6 months pregnant, as a surprise. He had originally told my aunt he couldn't come because of work, but he wanted to surprise her. Now, there weren't enough beds for everyone. My mother suggested that I give up my bed for the couple and sleep on the air mattress in the den, but my aunt insisted I stay in my room. My cousin ended up on the couch, and his girlfriend on an air mattress. Now my mother is lecturing me about being a bad guest. She thinks I should have insisted that my cousin and his girlfriend take the bed, especially since she is pregnant. Am I the asshole?
You weren't a bad guest. You have been given the short stick many times and had needs you helpfully communicated in advance. You could not have anticipated additional guests. I think the only possible AHs here are the cousin with the surprise pregnant GF. It's a nice gesture, but if he wasn't sure there would be room for them to stay, it was shitty of them not to make hotel reservations nearby and graciously decline any offers that your aunt could make room for the unexpected additions. If expecting cousin couple had done that, this would have been a non-issue. I don't feel that you should have insisted on giving up your spot over this. Edit. I originally felt there were no AHs, but I agree with others that your mom volunteering your space and then giving you a hard time is AHish. And secondarily, the surprise guests expecting accommodation without having arranged it in advance also are. Mom's the AH for trying to give away someone else's bed instead of offering her own. Makes sense for her considering the expectations though. OP has always been the one to bite the bullet for the sake of everyone else's comfort, so of course she should have to do the same now. This is, of course, shitty and unfair to OP. The cousin should have made arrangement for his pregnant wife. Don't try to make surprises during pregnancies without proper planning. If you do, then hotels are open. If your mother was so concerned about your cousin and his GF, she could have given up her bed or paid for the hotel for the surprise pregnant guest. This is something my mom would do. It drove me up the wall. OP doesn't say the cousin and pregnant girlfriend asked for or expected to take her room, just that OP's mother suggested it. I think her mom is totally the problem, always volunteering her for the extra couch/air mattress. I am 60 and have a partner now, but through my 30s was always sleeping on the couch. And it was always my mom. Well, cousin and GF ultimately slept on the couch in an air mattress, so obviously they hadn't made any alternative lodging plans. And that's what I'm saying would have been best, for their part, to avoid causing crowding and making others feel they should shuffle around to accommodate them. I think I'm assuming the cousin is the son of the aunt. In my extended family, the child generally assumes there's a slice of floor available at their parents' house. The parents are offended otherwise. I think judgment here is highly dependent on general family dynamics. OP doesn't make any comment about anyone else saying anything, so I feel comfortable saying mom is at fault. In my life, mom is always at fault. It's always mom. Did cousin and the GF have a problem with sleeping on the couch/air mattress? If not, I still disagree with you that it was an AH move not to make accommodations somewhere else. If they weren't pressed about where they were sleeping and Auntie was on board with hosting them, then there wasn't an accommodation problem at all. and it's mom that's creating an issue. NTA cousin could have said he would come and bring the GF as a surprise. Still a surprise, but bed situation would have been better. Did cousin not know that all these other relatives would be there? Doubtful. So he knew that sleeping accommodations would be an issue. Yet came as a surprise anyways. Cousin and pregnant so aren't complaining though. It doesn't matter if they showed up last minute to what I assume is his own parents' house. They're not the one trying to boot Opie from the room, and no one has any right to pick a bone with them except the aunt. And I doubt she really cares that her son and mother of her future grandchild showed up to a holiday. NTA, but you might have a mum problem. Why is she volunteering you? Your aunt is a good host who understands that you specifically called ahead to make sure you had what you needed. You mum is a bad guest trying to put pressure on another guest which could make her host look bad. Personally, I don't know why the kids aren't the ones sleeping on the couch and air mattress. But regardless, the cousin should have made arrangements to make sure his GF didn't end up on the air mattress, like a hotel room. My mother volunteers me a lot. She still thinks I'm a jobless 21-year-old. I try to set boundaries, but she just leaps over them because she thinks she knows what's best. I've accepted that she won't acknowledge boundaries, so I have to hold fast when she ignores them. It's a thing I have been working on with my therapist for a long time. Yet grinning face with smiling eyes, moms really don't get that we grow older and aren't that jobless teen anymore. Need to deal with it every time. Those of the silent generation and early boomers are pretty weird about these things. I had a great therapist once who drilled it into my head to hear the cues and deflect in firm ways for my mom, or others, to both hear and possibly listen to. Essentially, the most frequent cue is the word should. She told me so many times, don't let people should on you, and don't should on yourself, that it finally stuck. Then it's just learning to redirect. Mom, you know I have back problems and I made sure I'd have a bed. I was willing to go to a hotel otherwise. Please let the host approach me next time. I'd probably add, I think you might be out of line here and want you to consider that next time. And to my mom, I actually do say, don't should on me after all that, because we did work through a lot of our issues around invisible expectations. OP's mom is 60. That's a barely boomer, nearly Gen X. She is much too young to be pulling this shit. I say as someone who turns 60 next month. She could damn well have volunteered herself and her husband to swap with the cousin in GF. NTA. Yeah. My first thought was, why is mom trying to override the host? The mom is causing drama over something that didn't even affect her. NTA. That would make mom the bad guest then, in my book. Not her house, not her rules. NTA. Since your cousin was coming as a surprise, he should have known that there wouldn't be enough beds and planned ahead by getting a hotel, or telling someone else who was in on the surprise and made some sort of arrangements with them. Showing up with someone who is 6 months pregnant and no plans for where they will sleep is pretty dumb on his part. Because being charitable is so much easier if you just offer up someone else's comfort. That does always seem to be the case in these situations, doesn't it? Exactly. This isn't even about the OP being tubby. The cousin was stupid for failing to inform anyone he was coming home for the holidays and bringing a pregnant woman. Next time he will say something instead of trying to be the center of attention. To be fair to the cousin and GF, it doesn't look like they made an issue of the sleeping arrangements at all. Plus, people experience pregnancy differently. My best friend went camping at 7 months with no issues. But by month 5 my sister was struggling to sleep even in her own bed. Honestly, even if they didn't have a problem sleeping on the couch and air mattress, it was inconsiderate of the cousin to not plan ahead for sleeping arrangements. Inconsiderate to the aunt, but also his GF. Why not put more care into where the mother of your child has to lay? I imagine there's discomfort being pregnant and needing back and belly support even at 6 months. I totally agree. I think the cousin is actually the true here, though mom is definitely the close second. If the cousin had just said he was going to be there instead of playing the game of surprise, which I actually think reveals an inflated ego, as if they are going to be so shocked and happy when we randomly show up, thus putting all the attention on them, then the aunt could have made arrangements or someone would have had to get a hotel. Maybe cousin would have ended up on the couch anyway, but at least it would have all been agreed to ahead of time, and mom would have had to just accept it. They knew there wouldn't be enough beds. That wasn't the problem. They just thought they'd be entitled to OP's bed/room BC. It's 2.5 of them, and that OP would just give it up to them, which frankly isn't OP's problem. My fiancé and I were having this conversation just the other day. Some people just don't care to think about other people. As long as they think about themselves, everyone else can figure it out. That's what they assume everyone else is doing too. It's like the kind of people that will sit in the middle of a couch with their legs spread when there's not enough seating room for everyone, rather than choosing to sit towards the edge and leaving room for other people. Their comfort is more important than worrying about someone else, and everyone else should just understand and work around it. It's not to say they're bad people. Usually they're not. But they just don't understand how selfish they're being by not thinking about the others around them. Are we reading the same thing? Or did I miss something? It didn't seem like the cousin or his girlfriend had an issue with the couch/air mattress. Are we reading the same thing? Or did I miss something? It didn't seem like the cousin or his girlfriend had an issue with the couch/air mattress. It seems like mom is the one who made it a big deal and was the one who gave crap to Opie about not giving up the bed. They didn't seem to. This was a purely mom issue. The cousin is the biggest here. They wanted to make Thanksgiving all about them by making their presence the main event by hoodwinking the aunt into thinking they weren't able to come. Making it a surprise wasn't them being cute. It was them thinking everything should revolve around him and his girlfriend. Who the hell imposes themselves on someone without giving them the information to plan for how much food and how many bed spaces will be needed? Someone young. This is very typical early 20s behavior, not even necessarily attention-seeking. People who like surprises think other people like surprises, and young people don't always think logistics through. I'm sure he knows if his mom/extended family, if they do potluck-style holidays, cooks only enough for the number of guests, or is the type who could feed the whole neighborhood every holiday, so knew there would be enough food, or that they needed to bring something, and didn't think about bed space. Or for all we know, warned pregnant girlfriend, she probably would end up in the air mattress. I personally like air mattresses if they are in good condition/not leaking, and have chosen to sleep on them, yes, even pregnant, when I was younger. Mom is definitely the biggest problem here, IMO. Your mom could have given up her bed as could any of the other people staying with your aunt. Tell your mom she or your sister and Bill were equally capable of giving up their beds, and your sleep and comfort are just as important as theirs. AITA. Exactly. If it was that important to the mom, then she should have offered up her bed to the cousin and GF. AITA op. If there is an in this story. But I feel like someone should have made sure the pregnant woman had a bed to sleep in. Probably your cousin's responsibility, since he is the one who brought her to his mother's house. He should have ponied up for a hotel room FFS. ETA. My judgment is NTA. Cousin is TA. But I am surprised that the aunt or Opie's mother, or any of the other older generation adults here, didn't try to, kindly, kick him out and make him get a proper hotel room for him and his GF instead of letting them sleep on the couch/air mattress. The cousin's the asshole. He's the one who brought his girlfriend as a surprise without guaranteeing sleeping accommodations or getting a hotel for the night. Everyone else's arrangements were already made. He's the only one to blame. The only one is this story that's the is the cousin. Why is up to everyone else to accommodate to a pregnant woman they didn't know was coming when arrangements have already been made? Like no. I'm just shocked no one stepped up to tell cousin he should get a hotel room, I guess. I feel like a lot of families would have said something/worked something out. Then again, the cousin who brings his pregnant girlfriend to the holidays unannounced might just be a bit of a deadbeat loser. What I'm saying? This shit would not fly in my family, and everyone would have been looking at the cousin sideways, not Opie. Some of these comments are ridiculous. I'm willing to bet that the cousin can't afford a hotel room because why else would he decide to leave her on the air mattress? Unless Opie left it out, I don't see anywhere where the cousin and girlfriend were complaining or demanding better accommodations. It seems like the only one who had an issue with it was Opie's mom. Sleeping on an air mattress or couch for one night is not the end of the world. Someone should have asked the cousin where they expected to be sleeping. Nobody deserves a bed more than another. Of course it would be reasonable to give the pregnant woman a decent bed, but that's not your responsibility. It's where Opie's aunt lives, but I know a lot of hotels don't have openings same day on holidays. Somewhat depends on the area. Some have one hotel, and some have 50. Regardless, the cousin should have thought ahead to make sure there was a place for them to sleep. Surprise the aunt, but tell the mom in advance, for example. I would worry about this relationship. This thoughtless doofus put his pregnant girlfriend on the floor. Why didn't she speak up and tell him they need to go to a hotel? If this is his version of taking care of his partner, she's going to have a hard time. As the single child-free person in my family, I usually have the worst bed or room. I didn't mind for a while until I realized that the young kids each get their own room, and I'm still in the living room. I confirm ahead of time now, or stay at a hotel, or simply don't go. I have much the same issues. I am the single in a family of 4 married siblings, and I always got the couch or blow-up bed. The last time I stayed with my parents, there were tears involved because I was, again, required to sleep on the sofa because of, oops, car didn't start. Had a huge blow-up with mom about it, and she ended up crying. I stayed on the sofa that night and went home again in the morning. I didn't stay the week because I was tired of being the one put out. I got calls from everyone about it and told them all the same thing. Until they stay on the couch in the living room for a week, I didn't want to hear about it. My parents called again. I just told them that they had time to call and let me know so I could make other arrangements, but they decided to let me show up and find out even though they knew since noon, long before I departed to visit. I would have stayed in a hotel, town had too, but to have to sleep on the couch? It took my allergies a week to calm back down after that. So, no, I was not coming back that year. And I didn't. I also never had that issue again because my dad realized that I wouldn't put up with it anymore. Just because I decided not to breed doesn't make me a second-place citizen. My mom still has issues with why I just won't this once, because it's never once, has never been just once, and will never be just once. In mom's fam, no kids means you still are one and should accept that forever. So AITA, same here. Just this once every single year, right up to sleeping on the floor in a literal tool shed. Don't worry, the spiders won't bother you. At age 55 with a bad back. While 18-years who happened to have a boyfriend with them got a private room with a queen bed. Any couple, no matter how young or how new to the family, trumps anybody single, no matter how many decades they've been sleeping on the floor. I had my come-to-Jesus moment and started paying for my own hotel room 10 years ago. I didn't negotiate, just said, I need my own bedroom, so I will be at XYZ Hotel. It is heaven. As the former youngest who got demoted to middle child at 10, the best thing I ever did was get into a relationship. I'm not only a second thought, I'm also a relentless people pleaser. I slept on so many wooden floors and with so many allergens. I'm allergic to Down and most laundry detergent, until I got into a serious relationship. Now I'm attached to a guest and get to freeload off his portion of hospitality. Hope you find your life hack soon. My life hack is to no longer allow people to treat me poorly because of my relationship status. Can we just give kudos to your aunt for a second? I was shocked, in a good way, when you said she stood by her word to you. That's just awesome. And by the way, cousin should have gotten a hotel. Presumably he knew who all was staying over and can count. AITA, you communicated early about your request for an actual bed in a room with a door that closes, and that you wouldn't mind sharing a room or a bed. Your aunt agreed and took that into consideration when making the sleeping arrangements and assigned you a bed in a room. Your aunt, who is the host, didn't budge when unexpected guests arrived asking for a bed. The only asshole in this is your mom because she's amongst those people who think that singles should always get the short end / that couples take priority. She could have just as easily offered her spot in a bed, and I'm guessing your father's or her partner's spot as well, to her nephew and his GF but didn't. The cousin might also be an asshole if he assumed that you would automatically give up your bed, and he and his GF could have easily booked a hotel since they were coming in as a surprise and knew that not having a bed would be a risk. The cousin is a grade A asshole as well. Who the hell does he think he is, so special, that he surprises someone instead of announcing his attendance like a normal person? He's lucky the aunt had enough food and didn't kick him out for not being considerate enough of her hospitality. If it was important to your mother that they have a bed, she had the option of offering up the one she was going to use. AITA, why didn't your mom give up her bed then? The cousin is the only here because first off he said expected space for both of them, both sleeping and at the table. Secondly, because he let this happen to his younger pregnant GF. AITA, nobody with a working brain brings a pregnant woman who needs a place to sleep as a surprise guest. AITA, any of the other adults could have traded places with cousin and his pregnant GF if they were concerned she needed a bed. If your mom was so concerned, she could have offered to swap. This is a lesson to not arrive unannounced, and expect accommodations when it is known there's going to be many guests. NTA. I would have offered the pregnant girlfriend to share the bed with me if the bed was large enough, but your cousin definitely deserves the sofa. Your cousin said he wasn't coming, then decided to show up with a plus one. It's on him to get a hotel or sleep on the floor. You responded. You gave your requirements. They were met. You're NTA. He is, and so is anyone saying you're a bad guest. NTA, your cousin and his GF could also go get a hotel if they don't like the sleeping arrangements that they have to deal with, given they gave no notice that they were even going. Also, some air mattresses are super comfortable. Lots of pregnant women go camping and sleep on air mattresses. It is not that big of a deal for a night or two. NTA. It's your aunt's house and therefore her right to assign rooms. She assigned you a room and insisted that you stay there. It is none of your mother's business. Your mom could have given up her bed if she felt so strongly about this. Dude wanted to surprise people when he knew his GF would have certain needs for her comfort. That's on him. They should have gotten a hotel if they couldn't manage with the available options. NTA, especially given your history. If it was a one-time thing, maybe you could have considered swapping. TBH, it would have been nice to offer up the bed. But your aunt promised it to you, and she underscored it. So technically, NTA. I'm surprised by all the judgments. Sure, you're not obligated to give up the bed, but I wouldn't be hogging a bed while a pregnant woman sleeps on an air mattress and her partner on the couch. I think it makes you an arsehole to do this unless there's some major piece of information missing. NTA, but mainly because the pregnant girlfriend was a surprise guest. You requested and were granted a room before your cousin decided to show up out of the blue with his pregnant girlfriend. So yeah, I think in that case you are entitled to keep the room you requested. NTA. Clearly no one was actually that concerned about your cousin's girlfriend not having a bed. Any of the couples could have switched with them, but there were no volunteers. Ask your mom why her bed wouldn't have worked.
Story 2.
AITA for taking the graduation trip away from my middle school daughter? I have a 13-year-old daughter, almost 14, who is in 8th grade. School let us know about the graduation trip which she really wants to go to, but we have been dealing with some behavioral issues. I told her she needs to behave before I would sign her up. A few days went by and I told her it wasn't enough time yet. I needed to see more. She was afraid the trip would be filled up and she would be too late. So I agreed to sign her up for the time being, but I told her I would withdraw her if more issues arise. She agreed. The type of issues we had up until this point was 1. She was failing on her chores on a daily basis. Her chore list is very short. The only daily item is keeping her room clean, then the weekly item of taking the trash out. 2. She was secretly texting an ex-boyfriend, who didn't treat her well. 3. When she was caught, she tried to get her younger sister to lie and cover for her. 4. Her younger sister who came clean told me I needed to protect her because she was scared how her older sister was going to punish her. After I signed her up, I told her that she needed to do everything as we say. We are not strict parents, so I don't think it's unreasonable. School's Thanksgiving dinner rolls around. We all went. As soon as she got her food, she tried to leave the table to go hang out with a friend, female. Her dad, my ex, told her to stay for at least a little while. She never asked me or my husband for permission to leave. Soon after she left, and I thought it would just be a brief moment. An hour went by and she's not answering our texts or calls. My husband and I spent the next 40 minutes looking for her. Couldn't find her. Finally, she answered a call from my ex. She was outside apparently, still with the same friend. That's when I decided we are taking her out of the trip. She is distraught. AITA here? YTA-ish, but it depends. Look, all of your rules are reasonable and I definitely don't think you're an AH for enforcing consequences. But I'm not sure it's clear that your daughter was breaking a rule by leaving the table. I could be missing something, but I think this is the sequence of events. 1. She wants to leave the table to chat with a friend outside. 2. Her dad tells her to stay for a little while. 3. She waits some amount of time, then leaves to chat with her friend. 4. You assume that it will be a short chat. 5. She chats for a while and you get pissed because you can't find her. This feels like a case of miscommunication. If I was 13, there is a good chance that I wouldn't think that I was breaking any rules by doing this. My dad saying you can go in a little while would count as permission to leave in my head. Why would I ask again when the little while time is up? And why would I be expected to come back within a specific time frame? Look, if she understood what she was doing was wrong, then take her out of the trip. But I'd be careful with punishing her if she didn't realize she was being disrespectful. That can sour kids and make them feel that it's all futile anyways. Especially if she was hitting all the other behavioral markers you asked of her. Edit, from your other comments, it seems the real issue was that you couldn't reach her for 40 minutes, that she wasn't responding to your calls. Has this happened before? Do you think it was an honest mistake or it was on purpose? Something you said resonated with me. I don't think she fully understood what she did was wrong. Just to clarify, this was a big school function at a huge event space. That's why we were getting worried. Oh, that's so funny. I actually did this exact thing to my folks in middle school. It was a big school potluck and some friends and I bummed off to the theater wing, miles away from the cafeteria where everyone else was. We spent 2 hours there until someone's mom busted in furious because no one could find us and they were scared. Same thing, we didn't realize we'd been gone that long or that we should have communicated better. Too caught up in the allure of being together at school after hours when it was all empty. My folks set stricter rules about communicating with them after that. If I was going off on my own, I had to be available for check-ins or risk losing freedom. I remember going to the local fair with friends at 16 and I was meant to drop a text to tell my parents I was all okay and stuff, totally forgot because I was having so much fun. Very easy to do at any age, but especially as a kid. She's at that age where she's not an adult, but she's not a little kid anymore either. Kids need to have some sense of autonomy as they grow up. For X, is it really necessary that she clean her room every single day? Couldn't it be every couple of days or every week? If this is something causing conflict every day, please consider whether you might relax the rule. I also don't like that OP doesn't specify exactly what a clean room means. She also didn't specifically tell her daughter she could go talk to her friend for a brief period but then had to come back. I remember school functions like that, and to us, the whole point was to spend 10 minutes with our parents and then go hang out with friends and the parents would sit around talking amongst themselves. It seems to me that OP has a lot of vague ideas about what she'd like her daughter to do, or how she'd like her to behave, but she isn't spelling it out for her daughter, and then getting upset when the daughter fails to meet those expectations. I had a friend in high school who had parents like that, and it really messed him up. He was constantly failing to meet targets he didn't understand. The younger sibling being scared is another matter, and it sounds like the daughter might have issues with self-esteem if she's continuing to text someone who treated her poorly. The daughter might benefit from talking to a therapist if OP is really worried about that. Forbidding that sort of thing isn't known to work well. However, the rest of it sounds like OP's telling her daughter behave better. And the daughter, not knowing exactly what is okay or not, is doing her own thing. OP needs to set very specific boundaries for behavior, but taking away a graduation trip that is still 4 to 5 months away, that doesn't sound like a great consequence anyway. Consequences need to be immediately to be effective. I agree with everything you said. I am concerned about OP referring to the person she is banned from texting as an ex-boyfriend who didn't treat her well. Like she's 13, so what does that even mean? Is it a boy in her class who she sees every day? When I was 13, people would be dating for maybe a couple of weeks and usually would just hug or hold hands. They weren't really a couple by adult standards. And 13-year-olds are still learning, so they do stupid and mean things. That's why parenting is a hard job. OP has to step up to the plate and teach her daughter about relationships, respect and the right way she should be treated by a boy. It's got to be an open dialogue though, which requires trust, especially from the daughter. Right now she's just feeling like she's constantly in trouble, so she's hiding stuff. If you want her to come to you about boys, you can't punish her for talking to them. Yes, exactly. The way to get her to have healthier relationships around boys is to reinforce that she deserves to be treated well, not banning who she's allowed to talk to. At 13, it was mostly going to movies in big groups and holding hands and pretending the 8 other people couldn't see you doing it. But at 14, it turned into sitting by ourselves and making out in the back row. OP has a very short time to figure out what actual misbehavior looks like. Oh yeah, big difference between 13 and 14. Teens mature very quickly. So the trust needs to be established now so OP can guide her through those experiences. If she jumps to extreme punishment at every misbehavior or mistake, then the daughter will become sneaky and way more at risk. For X, is it really necessary that she clean her room every single day? Couldn't it be every couple of days or every week? If this is something causing conflict every day, please consider whether you might relax the rule. Especially if this is the only issue you have with her. Your list isn't very long, but I don't see any egregious examples of bad behavior. She isn't getting into fights. She's not smoking cigarettes. She's just not cleaning her room? Saying this as an adult that was once a kid that found it very difficult to keep her room clean. Turns out it's because I have ADHD, but no one knew back then. It's quite possible she doesn't know how to clean her room. And if you're NT, it's just obvious to you what clean is, but I promise you it's not obvious if you have ADHD and an anxiety disorder. Same. Carefully organizing a drawer? Easy. Figuring out how to tackle the whole room? Overwhelming. The best thing about being in my 40s is that I no longer have to live by my parents' hyper-clean standards. Because I have had full panic attacks trying to clean. But yeah, you open a drawer and that shit is perfectly organized. Face with tears of joy make it make sense. Oh yeah. I have ADHD, just conclusively diagnosed at 55, and I have what I call if you give a mouse a cookie brain. Say a room needs vacuuming. I can't just take out the vacuum and do it. I have to move everything. Then make sure what I move doesn't need dusting. Then check if other parts of the room need dusting. Then I can vacuum, but the corners need more attention. Then I see the baseboards and windowsills are dirty, so I have to clean them before I put everything back. And it has to be put back in order. Meanwhile, I start fretting about getting it all done in the allotted time. It makes it hard to clean a room and actually get it all done. This is something that resonated with me as I read this. I had constant fights with my mom as a kid, both because we had different ideas of what a clean bedroom looked like. My mom lives like Better Homes and Gardens, could knock on the door unannounced and she'd be ready for photos within 5 minutes. And because I had undiagnosed ADHD and really struggled with keeping my room clean even when I could tell that it wasn't. But part of the fights was my mom acting like it was so easy to stay on top of, and I was just lazy. Same thing with the unclear expectations of don't stay and talk for your friend for too long. Between time blindness, and not too long or a little while being a completely unclear and non-specific instruction, it absolutely lead to miscommunications. I am approaching this as someone with a neurodivergent brain, but I agree with the comments about it possibly not being clear that rules were being broken, because your expectations have not been clearly spelled out, and there's room for miscommunication. I think jumping right to pulling her from the trip is a bit much. Instead of taking away your only bargaining chip, so to speak, leave her name on the trip list and tell her. She needs to have explicitly stated and understood by everyone expectations for what she needs to do to keep herself on there. Ideally, both you and her dad can cooperate to maintain the same expectations in both households and communicate any progress. Your dad and I were disappointed we didn't get to see you more at the event, especially since we took off work / made time to attend for you. When we can't reach you for some time, we worry. Please respond with a call or text so that we can put our minds at ease, as you know you mean the world to both of us. We love you and know how frustrating being your age can be sometimes, since we were your age once too. How can we work together to help you earn back the reward of the trip? This is where you pick your battles. Is her safety and her not responding the issue, or her leaving the table without clear permission more important? Is maintaining good grades, participating in extracurriculars, and doing homework a priority in your household, or is taking out the trash? Does she do other things to help, like helping make dinner, take care of younger siblings, etc. that go unnoticed? Having the things you expect from her clearly defined and explained will help avoid misunderstandings and the confusion you are misinterpreting as contempt. Clean your room is subjective. Making your bed, putting dirty clothes in a hamper, and keeping the floor vacuumed helps you both understand what is needed. The same goes for being good, not hiding stuff, no talking back. Do the dishes / laundry / help your sibling expectations, too vague to be enforced or rewarded. You are teaching your daughter that her needs / wants are contingent on abiding by undefined, ambiguous rules without explanation or purpose. In the adult world, it'd be the same as saying, make money or work, without any guidance on the steps needed to do it. When she demonstrates the behaviors you expect, praise them to reinforce them. Thank her for being so patient with her siblings, taking out the trash without being told, taking the initiative to help elsewhere in the house, etc. Recognize the efforts she makes and work together toward the goal of the trip. She needs to understand that as of now, she's not going, but has __ months to earn back the privilege by doing X, Y, Z, and other helpful things. Commanding her to not talk to someone you dislike is only making her want to disobey and hide other things she knows are questionable from you. Encourage her to meet different people and, if appropriate, explain why you dislike her ex in specific terms. He was disrespectful of your boundaries / pushy when he __, you had few things in common and didn't agree on __, he had terrible BO, etc. If you can laugh about something you both agree on about him, even better. Sharing your perspective, but allowing her to come to the same conclusion on her own fosters the independence and social development she'll miss out on if you prohibit it outright. I became exceedingly good at hiding things from my parents and never asked for help when I really needed it because of these kinds of commands, which only caused more space between us, even now. It helps her know you're on her side and always will be, regardless of any conflicts that occur, and will be there to help pick her up when she falls. Punishing her for talking to someone they don't like is such a dangerous road. It means that if she starts getting involved with people that are genuinely dangerous and abusive, she'll do her best to hide everything, and mom and dad will have no way of protecting her from the danger. Telling a kid this age not to speak to someone is just begging them to start being sneaky. Yeah, that part concerned me. She needs to be taught how to be treated well. Maybe she has no examples at home. Parents being worried isn't the same thing as a kid misbehaving. Stop and think about it from her point of view, to help figure out how much was misbehavior, and how much not clear communication. If she misunderstood you, it's more the adult's fault for not being clear. You know that kids don't think about the big picture, it's the adult's responsibility to make sure the kid understands, before setting them loose. Parents being worried isn't the same thing as a kid misbehaving. OP really needs to get this through her head, especially since her post-history shows she's into true crime shows. That shit will really rot your fucking brain. I don't think people who consume all that media understand how paranoid it makes them. Parents often don't look at kid behavior through the kid point of view. But doing so is vital if you want the kid to learn better. Honestly, I think keeping her from a milestone, 8th grade trip, over what you've mentioned is overkill. She needs to start learning to be an individual. So what if her room is messy? It's her space. As long as it's not a hazard area, let her be in charge of her space. When she can't find things or has no clean clothes, she'll start figuring it out. Take her shopping to update her room, to have some ownership of it. I did this with my 3 and never had issues with them. If their room was cluttered or messy, they didn't like it. My daughters got into decorating their room, always rearranging it. It was their space. As for her chores, there must be other ways to work with her. Do you rotate them? Did she get to choose a chore? Make your kids part of the team. She's 13, Mom. Not 6. If this is the case, you shouldn't automatically resort to withdrawing her from the graduation trip. You need to actually talk to her. Is it wrong for a 13-year-old girl to want to hang out with her friend at a school event instead of staying with her parents the whole time? Or when you say what she did was wrong, are you referring to her not answering your calls and texts? And was she intentionally ignoring your calls because she knew you would want her to stop talking to her friend and come back to you? Or was she just having fun with her friend, not paying attention to her phone? Obviously there's history that isn't included in your post, and you know your child better than anyone reading this, but nothing in your post really says behavioral issues to me. And this incident definitely doesn't feel like it should be a final straw. What she did was minimal, but scary. You have to explain to her why she disappearing for 40 minutos is serious. Kidnapping and accidents can happen. But a kid won't think about that in a private school event indoors. Because, as a kid, I wouldn't think about how it was wrong of me to be talking to my friend for 40 minutes inside the event when I told my parents that I would go just do that, and they didn't specify any time for me to come back. If you want to punish her still, do it, but with something more mundane. No internet, no phone, no going out for a weekend, Not something as huge as graduation event/trip. There was no malice, and she didn't even leave the premise. It would be really unfair, that kind of punishment. She's 13 in a setting she is familiar with friends. I think you're being too helicoptery here. Did you even have a cell phone at 13 to be reachable by parents? I didn't. She's a kid and her behavioral problems don't sound that bad. Soft AITA. Op. Yeah, it seems like OP is mad that her daughter went and socialized with a classmate during a school function. You're not strict but has to ask for permission to leave the table? Have you had a discussion about lacking in chores? She's 13, she is still learning, and I can tell you now, anytime you say don't talk to XYZ, don't hang out with XYZ, that's exactly what she's going to do. What other behavioral issues are you having that is not normal 13 years old behavior? I can tell you now, you're stricter than you say you are. Also, I think having to clean your room every day is a bit unfair depending on what that entails. Is it simply making up the bed? Or is it vacuuming and putting clothes away? I think cleaning up her room weekly is more feasible. And the ex-boyfriend thing is weird IMO. It's weird spot of too young to be dating seriously anyway, but since you let her, you can't really police her texting to this extent. Was the texting inappropriate? The boyfriend being a terrible boyfriend, I guess? Doesn't really give you a right to tell her not to talk to him. You either allow her to date and make her own choices within reason, or you don't allow her to date at all. The only way you're putting up clothes every day is if you're putting dirty clothes in a hamper, unless you wash your clothes every day after you wear them. A daily keep your room clean chore almost certainly just means to maintain it at a basic level, which means you just clean up whatever mess you made that one day. This isn't unreasonable. Now obviously a daily deep clean would be unreasonable, but since OP specifies that the chores are light and since the only other chore is weekly taking out of the trash, I think we can take her at her word. As a fully grown adult, sometimes I don't want to put something away, or I'm going to use it tomorrow, or I have more laundry coming and it's easier to put it away all at once. I think having autonomy over her own space and the ability to live in her own mess for a minute is good. Weekly room cleans are more reasonable. OP has an attitude. OP doesn't clarify what they mean about him not treating her well. But as someone who was in an abusive relationship as a teenager, threats of punishment just made me keep quiet about the abuse. I felt like they weren't safe to talk to because I didn't want to be punished. Perhaps having a serious discussion about what's wrong with the relationship, she deserves not to be mistreated, etc. This all feels like a bad case of miscommunication. I am concerned about the wording too. OP's best chance at protecting her daughter is having an open relationship where they can talk about this stuff. It's complex and teens have very strong emotions. She needs guidance and support, which means space to make mistakes knowing she can rely on her mom to catch her if she falls. That's the crux of parenting teenagers and preparing them for adulthood. You have to teach them and then allow them to learn, which sometimes involves failing. But that's okay, sometimes the consequence of the mistake is punishment enough. You don't have to pile on, just talk about it. I'm sorry you experienced abuse. Agree. From here, OP sounds like a very strict parent. I absolutely agree she is much stricter than she thinks she is. Her daughter only has to do everything as OP says. That's setting the daughter up for failure. I agree. I kept waiting for some really clear behavioral violation like running away or cyberbullying. Not doing chores to OP's satisfaction and this weird friend snafu don't rise to the level of missing a trip for me. In this case, I'm going to have to say YTA. Do everything we say and behave are not clear, reasonable goals for a 13-year-old. My suggestion, make a list of things you'll need her to do to earn the trip and post it in a shared space. Make this a checklist for chores and other things she can do, not things she can't do, like don't text so-and-so. If she doesn't take out the trash, for example, you can point to the chart to remind her. This allows her to have clear goals to work towards, that lets her see for herself in real time how she's doing, and puts the responsibility entirely on her. Punishing her for talking to her ex is not helpful. She is at an age where she's especially vulnerable to romantic mistreatment, as she is just starting to test the waters with dating and relationships. She needs positive support to recognize healthy and unhealthy relationships so that she can make those decisions for herself. Punishment is not helpful for this, and only makes her feel like she can't trust you enough to tell you if something happens down the line, e.g., if she keeps texting him, and he gets her alone and hurts her, will she come to you for help, or will she be too scared of losing huge things like grad trips as punishment for talking to him in the first place? No wonder she's pressuring her sister to lie for her, she's afraid of you, and is more concerned with protecting herself from you than from him. Her younger sister who came clean told me I needed to protect her because she was scared how her older sister was going to punish her. Have you considered that the younger sister was made to fear the older sister's punishment the exact same way the older sister has been made to fear your punishment? She's modeling the behavior you've shown her in her interactions with the people she has perceived authority over. Finally, school trips are great social-emotional teaching opportunities, where she can socialize with her peers in a school-adjacent setting where rules are enforced. This is a way to encourage pro-social behavior, and withholding it as a punishment for general rudeness may not be as beneficial for her development as taking the trip might be. A grad trip is a huge deal to a 13-year-old. I'm not seeing any misbehavior in this post that is concerning enough to justify this punishment. I agree. My dad withheld a middle school trip like this from me for a petty reason, and I still hold a grudge about it, lol. I'm 37. My mom was thoroughly shitty to me the morning I got up for my first band camp, at 13, 2 weeks at a university. She had promised to give me $10 whole for spending money. This was a long time ago. I got no allowance or money for chores. She wakes me early and gives me a list of chores to complete before I leave at noon, and it was the whole house. Dust, mop, clean bathrooms, etc. When I was done, she gave me the fucking white glove test and deducted spending money. I got on the bus in tears with $5, and I am still salty as fuck. So sorry. I had a mom like this. I am 80 and still things out of the blue trigger outrage. Kids now would not take the crap we took. That's so mean. I hope you had other band camps. I agree with you, it's too far for what the daughter actually did.
Story 3.
AITA, my roommate asked me not to use the oven. I am currently living in Spain with 2 other girls, one Spanish and the other Ecuadorian. I am only using their nationalities as a way to distinguish them. Anyway, the Spanish roommate has been nitpicky since we first moved in, but I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt. For example, she started a cleaning schedule, to which I have no problem with, but then sent a passive-aggressive text to our group chat about how the kitchen wasn't cleaned correctly even though my other roommate had done a good, not perfect, job cleaning it. She knew this and still said, well, I can help you if you want, because there is dust on the stove, the rag we use leaves debris, causing it to look slightly dusty, but she knows this, whatever. Anyway, tonight, I was using the oven for exactly 10 minutes to cook veggie chicken patties, and she comes to my room telling me that the oven uses a lot of electricity and not to use it for small things. This felt like my last straw, but I have to live with her. By the way, I said I'd pay extra if the monthly bill is outrageous. I have several ways of comparing the prices, and many friends who live in the city who also have roommates. I will continue to use the oven whenever I want, but pay for it if necessary. Does this make me the asshole? I might be the asshole if I keep using it in spite of her asking me not to. Edit, we moved in November 1st, we have not gotten the utility bills, we're just roommates, she is not the landlord. I have used the oven 4 times for no longer than 20 minutes each time. I do use a hot water bottle for heat every night using boiled water, because BC we don't use the heat often, 2x only, each time at her suggestion. I move out in April 2025, so buying an air fryer doesn't make senses. NTA. And she comes to my room, telling me that the oven uses a lot of electricity, and not to use it for small things. Does she have any actual power? Are you subleasing from her? Does she own the place, etc.? Because if not, she's just going to continue bossing you around until explained simply, you are not my boss, my parent, or landlord. I have the right to use these things I paid for, you have no say otherwise. Leave me alone. No. She is just my roommate. I am trying to be civil because we have to live together, but that was too much for me. You're right though, I am too grown to be made small, and I will tell her, nicely, to F off. Tell her that you won't be changing your cooking habits for her preferences. She is not entitled to telling you what appliances you can and can't use to cook. Although if she'd like to buy an air fryer for OP, I'm sure OP could offer to use that. Smiley face. Way back when I house shared, I had a housemate who refused to let me get another fridge because of the electricity. So I just said I'd cover more of the bill, compare it to the last one and pay the extra. It was insignificant. The hilarious thing was he kept complaining about it, so got energy meters and put them on my fridge and his. Turned his old shitty fridge used 5 times the energy mine did, and once faced with this was told to get a new fridge or pay more of the bill. He refused to hand over more money, so bought another fridge and our bill went down to below what it was when we had just his fridge. I also put locks on my fridge as I learned his main objection was not being able to eat as much of my food as he could without me noticing. Fridges and roommates, 'cause the most drama ever, I swear. A house share I was in, we had boy fridge and girl fridge, 2 guys/2 women, so easiest way to remember, she took my food constantly. Never anything from the boy fridge, but everything from mine. One Christmas I went to stay with my parents for a fortnight, cleaned all my stuff from fridge before I left, came back to a stinking kitchen and housemates cross at me for leaving food to go bad, because she'd purchased some turkey and let it go rancid. I am just realizing there is literally no point at all to my post, I'm just still so cross about it after almost 15 years, faced with tears of joy. Damn though. It grinds my gears. May you all be blessed with non-thieving, non-lying housemates. Was dishes for us. My husband's roommate at the time and her boyfriend used to go away for SCA weekend events. He was only my boyfriend at the time. She started getting really petty and told me I couldn't use things that belonged to her in the kitchen, regardless of whether I washed dishes or not. I don't know what we'd gone out for, but we came back on a Friday afternoon and not only did they make a meal, leave the entire mess including food they didn't put away, but she used my dishes to eat off of and it was disgusting. We washed them and they never went back into the kitchen for common use. We started removing all of our stuff from the kitchen and kept it in his room. The epic tantrum I heard from the bedroom was totally worth it. When I was in high school, I was in a transitional living program and had a fridge mate that was different than my roommate. Anyway, my fridge mate graduated and my roommate asked for some juice from my fridge a month or so after graduation. TLDR, my roommate grabbed some juice that my old fridge mate left that I never got around to cleaning up and the juice had started to ferment. Face with tears of joy, face with tears of joy. I had to explain that no, I was not trying to make wine. My college roommate was trying to make pickles and forgot the jar in the back of our shared mini fridge. She was mortified to finally realize what the smell was. This reminds me of a housemate who used to get annoyed that I did 5 kettle boils a week for hot water bottles for an injury. I didn't drink hot drinks outside of that, left at like 7 a.m., back late every day, gone at the weekend. She on the other hand worked from home and had multiple cups of tea, had laptop, heater running, etc. And also was there 7 days a week. I just couldn't follow her logic. I had a roommate who demanded an extra $10 per month from me for electricity for my small window AC unit that I only used when I was home. Fine, that's reasonable. Until I found out she was sleeping in my bed when I wasn't home because she didn't want to spend $75 on her own. I am too grown to be made small. Love this, and it's so true. That's a really shit roommate. She has the opposite of the authority to tell you what to do. I'd say kick her out if she keeps this up. I agree, do not back down. Stand your ground or this will get worse. Do not offer to pay more on the electricity bill for using the oven, it will be a negligible amount. If she wants you to do that, start logging every time she turns on a light or the microwave, because it uses a lot of electricity, make it super obvious. Yes, you have to live with her, but it seems this needs to come to a head and pop before it's going to get better. I've had some shitty roommates and I can play the long game. From an appliance analysis website. On average, running a medium oven of 2,400 watts for 1 hour daily costs around $11.1 per month or $133.20 per year. However, the cost can vary depending on different factors, such as the electricity rate in your area, the size and wattage of your oven, and how frequently you use it. That works out to 37 cents per hour to use the oven. That's about 6 cents per 10 minutes used. 10 minutes were used to heat up those veggie chicken patties. The only way she can live under all her terms is to live on her own. NTA. I lived in a group house in college. We had an oil furnace, which had to be filled with oil about once a year. We had all agreed on a thermostat setting that would save on oil. It wasn't freezing, but you had to wear a sweater on cold days. One roommate kept turning the heat up. We knew it was her because we caught her doing it. She started sneaking around and turning it up when no one was in the living room. When the oil ran out and the tank needed to be filled, guess who wouldn't pay their share? Ext time she goes to take a shower, tell her that she didn't do anything to get dirty enough and she should skip it and save water. Why are you letting her force you not to cook and also force you to sleep with the heat off in winter? Do you usually let people walk all over you and make unreasonable demands? Turn on the heat. Cook whatever you want in the oven whenever you want. Move out as soon as humanly possible. Ignore her. You must grow a spine, polish it up, nice and shiny and strong, and if she gives you trouble, again, tell her you live here too, she has no authority over you. And that is the end of the discussion. Repeat as necessary, and just ignore. No is a full sentence. Next time she barges into your room, tell her, Please do not use my door, because it unnecessarily increases wear and tear on the door, hinges, handle, and frame. Be more considerate in future and fuck off. Respectfully. Her nitpicking seems more about control than actual concerns. If the bill goes up and OP is covering it, that's really all that matters. Just ignore her. Don't reply to texts, and if she says something verbally, just speak to her like a small child. You don't want me to cook? In the kitchen? Oh, this must be so stressful for you. Then walk away without offering to change the behavior. Yep. I've had roommates like this before. The fact is, if you're going to be that nitpicky about dust, cooking smells, power usage, etc., you simply have to live alone. Not liking or agreeing with every single thing your roommate does is part of having a roommate. I award you no points, may God have mercy on your soul. Fellas, are you an asshole if you, checks notes, cook food at your own home? NTA, I know energy prices are a little higher in Europe, but you still have to eat, lol. It's OP apartment too, and using the oven for 10 minutes is completely fine. If she wants to micromanage every little thing, that's her problem, not OP NTA. So my in-laws are from Europe, but have lived in the US for over 40 years at this point. The oven, legit, was not allowed to be used in their house. I think she allowed it a few times a year on holidays when a lot of baking was going on, but what was it? Say you wanted to use the oven to make garlic bread for dinner, it was an absolute no, and you were treated insane for wanting to turn the oven on just for that. It was always kinda wild to me, but his mom has her quirks, and that's one of them. Was there any reasoning for it, or just one of those crazy parent things? My in-laws have a bunch of rules like that, and they're all OCPD related. Def not OCD with her, I don't think, maybe a bit trauma related as she was raised in post-WW2 England. All I've ever gathered is it costs a ton of money to run a stove, so it wasn't allowed to be used. I mean, electricity is kinda expensive where they live, but not prohibitory so, as they are wealthy. I think it was something she grew up being taught, and it stuck for life, despite it maybe costing a few cents to turn it on for a dish. Do they not use the oven? This person is on a weird power trip. It's not expensive to use an oven, and you used it for a perfectly legitimate reason. You will meet many more of these folks. They think their way is the best way, always, and will do exactly what your roommate is doing. A script could be, I understand you're managing your finances, and using less power is a thing for you. But I don't believe in not living fully in and using all the appliances in the apartment for their assigned tasks. I will ask the OV to heat small things from time to time. You do it your way, I will do it mine. They are micromangers of everything. Script restove. It's unfortunate the cleaning towel leaves debris. However, roommate B did a fine and thorough job cleaning the kitchen. You don't get to criticize that. If you want it cleaner, that is on you. Please do not send a text like this again. It poor rooming together skills and helps nothing. And good old no, I'm not going to do that. I don't know what your budget is like or costs in Spain, but a toaster oven can be an inexpensive and more effective way to heat smaller things. I had a flatmate like this once, and you're right, she tried to micromanage everything, even down to asking us to use less toilet paper, to which I said I would use exactly as much toilet paper as I needed. It's been a while, but when I lived in Spain, I don't think my household did ever use the oven. A friend's apartment straight up didn't have one. Whoa. What do they use instead? A microwave? Stovetops for cooking. They mostly bought baked things from shops. But they do different things. Roasted garlic tastes different from sautéed. Or mac and cheese with a slightly broiled top. Homemade meringues. Chicken pot pie. Which I guess aren't very Spanish things. But you use the oven for so much, lol, that's wild to me to not have an oven in your home. Mine died this year, and I struggled to put together cohesive meals, and I'm a decent chef, lol. I could live without one, and I'm in the UK, that's also removing the air fryer. I really only use it for pizza, and sometimes a Kiev. I cook on the stove mostly, curries, stir fries, no oils, just water, and I use the microwave a little. You use water instead of oil when stir-frying? Weird. Healthier, I guess. Seeing that would make half of East Asia shake their head in disbelief. My mom would only use a couple of tablespoons of it, but she'd still use oil. Wow. Baking is such a comfort to me that I can't imagine not being able to do it. Cookies, brownies, quiches, lasagna, even homemade bread. Roasted veg, baked potatoes, pies both savory and sweet. I don't think I could live without an oven.